The workshop was about inclusion in transition, and it was really based on some work I was doing over the summer, looking at inclusion in transition town Stoke Newington, but also in the movement more generally. And I was really trying to look at what our aspiration is when we talk about inclusion in transition. Are there any assumptions that underlie that? Are we talking about bringing people into the movement, or are we talking about us kind of going out to them? And yeah, part of the way I did that was using participatory methods, so trying to build research that was participatory and that was cooperative. The way that inclusion ties in with identity and belonging is quite interesting actually, because there's a lot around inclusion that's about who are we as opposed to them. So there's a lot about groups, you know, who are we reaching out to these other communities. So there's a lot about identity, about how we identify ourselves. And there's also one thing I found in the work that I did as well was that there's often a tendency to perceive similarity and to actually gloss over the diversity of experience, diversity of backgrounds that are maybe in a group. And I thought that was really interesting, because actually to move into true community, we need to begin to understand and acknowledge those differences and be able to then kind of live with them and deal with them openly, rather than kind of feeling that we're all similar when we're not. I think for transitioners to be properly inclusive, there's probably three main things I would say. One is that we really need to be conscious of integrating head, hand and heart when it comes to inclusion. By that I mean that yes, it's about thinking about which communities we can target and how to bring them in, but it's also about how we feel inside. It's about our own attitudes and our openness and how we are in our day-to-day lives, which is the heart. And the hand is making sure that when we're doing our activities, people are able to participate by just getting stuck in with hands. So that's the first way. The second way, I think, is by being conscious that everything we do in a group also has a mirror in wider society and in ourselves. So making sure our group process is inclusive is an important part, but it's equally important to make sure that within ourselves we're inclusive of the parts of ourselves that we maybe are not so fond of. And also understanding that this is a societal issue as well. So it's not necessarily something that we can solve and become inclusive as a group. And the final thing I would say, which came out quite strongly, which we were looking at in the workshop yesterday, was the role of masked power and inequality that exists in society. And I think as transitioners, this is really tough. I find this difficult, but as transitioners, to become properly inclusive, we really need to begin to acknowledge the power that exists in our groups and in society, and also to acknowledge the social inequality that exists.